Mark Carney's Liberal government is cramming through two controversial pieces of legislation that you likely haven't heard much about, but will have major impacts on your life. Hello, I'm Adrienne Batra. With me are Brian Lilley and Warren Kinsella. Brian, you did a very quick but important dive into these two pieces of legislation. I'm talking about Bill C2. It is legislation that was introduced earlier this week, and Bill C5, which is specifically designed to build Canada. The other one is for our border protection. They sound good. They sound important, but there's some major problems with them, Brian.
Yeah, and this often happens, especially with new governments. There's bad ideas that have been floating around Ottawa for years, in some cases decades, and new government comes in. Some bureaucrat goes to their filing cabinet and dusts off an old bad idea and says, "Let's insert this in." So you've got Bill
Mhm.
C2 dealing with the borders, and what they want to bring back is the idea of warrantless searches for your mobile data, for your internet data. It's something that is called lawful access, and we haven't had that in Canada before. We've tried it before. You might recall a certain justice minister under Stephen Harper, Vic Taves, who was, or forget if he was justice, but he was the minister in charge, and he brought this in, and it was wrapped up with, again, something good, fighting child pornographers. And he said, well, you're either with us or you're with the child
Mhm.
pornographers. It was the same provisions in that bill that the Liberals want to bring in now. Basically, they'd be able to go to your mobile phone provider or your internet service provider and say, give us all their data. We need everything. So that's problematic. Bill C5, which is about building major projects in the national interest. That's a good idea. We at the Sun support that. We want more pipelines. We want more infrastructure. But rather than repealing some of the bad existing Liberal legislation like C-69 or the West Coast tanker ban, different things like that, this bill says that if a project is deemed by cabinet, again, cabinet, not a vote of parliament, but by cabinet to be in the
Mhm.
national interest, then they can make it so that 13 different pieces of legislation are suspended, and they list them all in the bill. But then they also say cabinet can add any other bill to the list of bills or laws that are suspended for a project in the national interest. So, one great example they used at National Post was, let's say this modular housing idea takes off, but there's a lot of graft and kickback and corruption. Oh, we can make that go away. We'll just suspend that law because this project is in the national interest.
Mhm.
Good laws, good ideas, bad portions of it. Unfortunately, it looks like especially C5 is going to pass. Let's hope it's amended at least.
Warren, I think what's concerning is the speed with which these are going through. I mean, often we say, oh, the wheels of government move too slow, nothing gets done, everything is held up. But in certain instances, there is a need for a rigorous debate. There is a need for bigger conversations, particularly on these two pieces of legislation. But I'm interested from your perspective, like on C2, but the Border Act. Um, everybody's freaking out about Donald Trump's ability for the border agencies to look at your phones and this and that. I mean, this is being criticized as mirroring something like that.
Well, as a lawyer, just putting on my lawyer's hat, forgive me for that. They've always had an ability to look at your phone, whether you're coming from the United States or going to it. What everybody needs to remember, often people forget, a border guard, somebody doing border duty, whether in the United States or Canada, has far more power than your average police officer. So they have the ability to access your electronic devices. So if you're going to the United States for business, as I did just a few weeks ago, I brought a burner phone because I didn't want those guys monkeying around in what I've written and the personal stuff I've got on this phone that I'm speaking to you on now. So I'm not as alarmed by that. The point that I'm concerned about is the one you raise, Adrian,
Mm.
which is I think they've bitten off more than they can chew. There's no question during the election They received a mandate, as did the Tories, whoever won it, to toughen up the way we do with the deal with the border. We promised the Americans, we promised Trump we would do that. But, it does require some debate. We are still a democracy. So I agree strongly with you. I think the big problem here is they've just tried to do too much too soon, and it's blowing up in their face. And they're not assisted by the fact that the worst MP in Canada, Mark Garrettson, is in charge of whipping this legislation through the House of Commons. And I don't think he's going to pull it off. I think that the House is going to rise before they get a chance to jam this through, unless I'm missing something.
Well, it seems that there is a desire, Brian, to have this all said and done with a bow wrapped around it by end of business day Friday, which is the end of the week. I'm wondering if that's possible. Is there any more amendments that can be made on either of these pieces of legislation, on C2 or C5? And there's a number of First Nations groups that have massive concerns with respect to C5, the Build Canada Act. Do you see anything that can come before they try to shut the door on this?
Well, C5, I believe, was able to get out of committee with the help of the Conservatives. So they're looking like they took the bait on, well, you got to help us. You want these big projects through, got to do it. Um, you know, Again, it's the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and
Mhm.
C5 has
Yeah.
some good intentions. C2 has some good intentions, but giving cabinet the ability to say we can suspend any law on any project that we deem in the national interest, that's a scary proposition. And always think, would you give this power to your opponent? If you wouldn't give it to your opponent, don't give it to yourself.
Yep.
That is a good rule in politics. And,
Yep.
on C2, I get what Warren's saying about the border, but this would actually give the ability to scoop up your data to every police force in Canada. I was speaking to a judge recently about the anguish they went through on whether to grant a search warrant that was a bit far reaching and wide, but there was good reasons for it. But they wanted to ensure there were conditions, that it wasn't abused. That's one search warrant. You won't need a warrant for this. You just go,
Mhm.
hey, that Kinsella's a little dodgy. We need all of his phone records. We
Well,
need every search he's done, every app he's downloaded.
that's just good judgment. They should be doing that.
So,
Well,
I hope they can be amended, but I'm really not sure.
final word to you, Warren, just from that perspective, just as an individual Canadian. We've probably bored the hell out of the audience by talking about C2 and C5, and people's eyes have glazed over, but these have direct impact on you as an individual. Make sense of that.
I think what he's trying to do, I think what the new prime minister is trying to do is like 100 days of decision. And
Mhm.
he's in a hellfire rush, not just on these two pieces of legislation, but, as Brian reported, we were told in March that our relationship with the United States of America was over. And then we find out through Brian Lilley that they're secretly doing a trade deal. And like there's a number of examples of that where they're either contradicting themselves or they're moving so quickly, people are having difficulty debating it and discussing it and thinking about it. So
Mhm.
no question, they've got a mandate from the election to do certain things. And Carney is clearly an impatient guy, but I think he needs to slow down, if not for our good, for his own good politically.
Well, Canada, these two pieces of legislation are going to be rammed through unless something significant stops it. Well, let us know what you think in the comments below. Like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel and go to thetorontosun.com. You'll find commentary and coverage there you will not find anywhere else.